Hey, hello, hello, hello. I'm so excited to be back on. Oh my goodness. It's always like, I think too long since we last see each other. So yay, we're back, we're back. We're going to be doing book club. We're going to be talking about this classic book. If you haven't read it, you definitely will want to stay for this conversation so that you can go over just high level things that you're going to take away from the book and why you need to read it immediately. This was the book choice for this month. So yay, super excited. And this is going to be good, guys, because I always love learning on a weekend. I feel it's like, oh, my husband was just telling me, he was like, oh, you wake up early on a Saturday too. It's like, of course, Saturday and Sunday is just another day of the week, especially when you're an adult and you have like a million things to do. So Saturday is the perfect day to learn. Saturday is the perfect day to connect with folks, to further yourself in your business and your career, any of that good jazz. So today, we're going to be talking about negotiations. Spread the word, share the link with your friends, people in your network, and we're going to get started in a couple of seconds. And then in the meantime, I will just shout out where I am. So you can be accessing this on Facebook. I'm obviously in the book club group. I'm on the page. I'm on my personal page, Periscope, YouTube. So you can get Tasha in all different types of places. So it's going to be good. And with that, let's get started. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Natasha Nurse. I am the founder and creator behind Dressing Room Mate. It's a coaching platform designed to help women really think about how they can think with clarity, how to dress with confidence, how to live with purpose. I coach women and men, and primarily I focus on accountability coaching and really innovating within your personal life, within your career, and then of course within your business. And every month I come on here, because I love social media. Hello, have you met me? Ridiculous. And I also just love to use social media as a platform and an opportunity to educate and inspire people and innovate. So I have a book club because I wanted to hold myself publicly accountable to read a minimum of one book a month. But if you come in every month, you know that I'm telling people about wanting to read over 100 books. So that's really where I'm at. This book is You Can Negotiate Anything by Herb Cohen. It's a goodie. It's an old book. Like, let's see, I'll open up. It's like so old. Remember when books had like yellow pages, like that kind of old. So copyright's 1980, guys. So like before I was born. Old. So yay. How fun is that? No, but there's really interesting things that are still applicable today. And so that's what we're going to go through. And then, of course, even if you missed this video, or even if you're like, oh man, I can't stay the entire time, that's okay. Where I'm going to do a recap on the blog on dressingroommate.com. So make sure you stay for as long as you can. And then, of course, if you want to rehash this and kind of go over this again for your own personal use, go to dressingroommate.com on Monday. You'll see a new blog post about this book and this conversation. And of course, if you have questions or comments, please put them in. It's always interesting trying to see the comments on StreamYard. It's like I do this through StreamYard. So they come in and then it's not always fully clear, but please put your comments and questions in so that if you have something that you want to address, I definitely will make sure to come in and do that for you. Without further ado, why do we need to talk about negotiations, period? Guys, life is a game. It is a game that's funnier and more interesting minute by minute. And if you haven't already caught on to this game, there's a lot of things and a lot of things in motion and people and behavior, right? So psychology, but also trying to understand your intentionality of like, what do you want out of this world? What do you want out of your business? What do you want out of your career? There's so many things that are going on simultaneously. And the power of negotiation is it helps put more control in your pocket so that you can drive the car in the direction that you want to go, that you can steer the ship where you want it to go. And so that's why the power of negotiation is extremely critical, but understanding it and understanding how it's used against you and then how you can use it against others, and not necessarily in a nefarious way, but more so, again, trying to achieve your goals. Your life is of paramount importance, and you deserve to get everything that you want in this world. Everything, not just some, everything. but you have to utilize tools and strategy to be able to achieve one line item by line item. So how I read, and I recommend this, guys, for you as you read and you're like, Tosh, I need to read more. Well, go ahead, boo. Let's do this. Come on. But I recommend getting, like, you can get these like tab things from, so also addicted to Amazon. Hello, Amazon. And I love getting these tabs. They like sell like 100 or 200 tabs. And what I do is I get to write on them. So that way, even when you read the book and if you want to pick it up again, you can go specifically to say, oh, okay. So for instance, like I wrote ultimatum. So I know if I had a question about that, okay, here we go. And he, in the beginning of the book, he actually, in the, I think, yeah, the first chapter, he talks about questions to ask. So let's kind of go over that. He says the following: my point is whether you do or don't negotiate anything should be strictly up to you based on your answers to the following questions. So these are key questions you would want to ask yourself to decide if you want to negotiate in a situation in your life. 1, am I comfortable negotiating in this particular situation? Comfortability is important. If you're not comfortable, then are you going to execute? Most likely not. 2nd, will negotiating meet my needs? Right? There has to be purpose in everything you say and everything you do in life. So especially with negotiations, if it's not going to get you your needs, then why would you do it? Null and void. Number 3, is the expenditure of energy and time on my part worth the benefits that I can receive as a result of this encounter? So the ROI, right? What's the return on investment here? If I do this, if I go down this path and we do this exchange, what am I getting out of it? What is the other party or the opponent getting out of it? And is that meaningful? Is that worthwhile? I think those are reasonable questions. I think those are easy questions to remember and to ask yourself. And so he then goes on to say, only if you as a unique individual can answer yes to all 3 of these questions should you proceed to negotiate. You should always have a sense of mastery over your situation. Pick and choose your opportunities based upon your needs. Don't allow yourself to be manipulated or intimidated by those who aren't concerned with your best interests. Interesting. You have the freedom to choose your attitude toward any given set of circumstances and the ability to affect the outcome. In other words, you can play a much greater role than you thought in shaping your life and improving your lifestyle. Was I not just saying the same thing? Hello. Read the book, obviously. So to recap that, when you're thinking about negotiations, whether it is buying a new item for your home or negotiating your salary for a new job or negotiating a change, a lateral change in your company that you currently are at, ask yourself the 3 following questions. 1, am I comfortable negotiating in this particular situation? Why? Comfortability is going to lend for you executing that better. 2nd, will negotiating meet my needs? There's no point to do this if it's not going to get you what your ultimate goal is. 3rd, is the expenditure of energy and time on my part worth the benefits that I receive as a result of this encounter? What is the ROI on this? You have to know this ahead of the game. You can't decide. A lot of times people are too responsive and reactive. Set the intention, set the outcome. Why am I doing this? You should want to do something and know you're doing it for a specific outcome that you're looking to achieve. Not just like, oh, I don't know, we'll see what happens. What? No, absolutely not. Okay. So hopefully that's super clear. If not, again, put your comments in wherever you're catching me so that I can come back and address those. Okay. Now, again, with the tabulations, there's a lot of tabs. I know. It's the judgment is real for myself and from anyone who sees my bookcases with all these books and all these tabs. It's nuts. So he talks about ultimatums. He talks about 3 crucial variables when it comes to negotiation. So we can go through that. And then I want to also just hit a couple of things before giving you the takeaways so that you have that summarized. And then, of course, if you have questions, you can write them in this live. You can write it on the blog when the blog post goes live, right? I want this to be a conversation for you so that you start to really think about how you've been either underutilizing negotiations in your life, in your lifestyle, or how you can leverage it more. The power of negotiation can get you more things that you want out of life. So it's not something to like snuff at, nor is it something to be like, I don't know if I can do this. Well, have you tried, boom, boom? Right? Because if you haven't tried, then we haven't really discovered where you stand with it. Okay. So He says the following. This is on page 50 if you do have a copy of the book for yourself. In politics, poker, and negotiation, success derives not only from holding a strong hand, but from analyzing the total situation so cards can be skillfully played. Even the slickest, best positioned contestant makes little headway unless he takes into account hard-nosed realities affecting everyone. You see, in order to influence an outcome in politics, poker, or negotiation, you must realistically analyze the other side's position as well as your own, in light of three ever-present, tightly interrelated variables: power, time, information. All right, so if you want more on that, y'all know what you need to do. You need to get the book. You need to get the book. And I will show that for you now on the screen. Yep. So you can get the book at dressyourmate.com currently. Just click on it. It takes you to Amazon. You'll be able to get the print book, the Kindle, all that good jazz. So make sure that you do that so that if you're like, I want to know more, then you can definitely do that. Now, he also, just so you know, if you're thinking about negotiation and like, what does that mean? There's different styles. There's different techniques. And that's what I think makes this book timeless and classic and like super practical, because it's not just talking about the concept or the art of negotiation from an abstract way, but there's like actual examples of how do you handle it in this type of situation, and what are different ways to approach it, and what does it mean within the context of a phone call or the context of an in-person conversation, in the context of I'm buying a fridge versus I'm negotiating a business deal. Different contexts, different situations, different parties involved. You have to understand the nuance and then adapt to that. So that I thought was super clever and super important. Also, what I thought was interesting, I will mention this, is he talked about cues. A lot of times people display things in how they speak and how they interact with their own bodies and then you. And what's interesting is I didn't necessarily think about how that could affect a negotiation, but it does. It has impact because it gives you insight into the other person and how they're dealing with whatever's going on. And that can affect how you speak and what you say to that person. So what am I talking about? Specifically, he's talking about cues. So he says the study and interpretations of cues has become very popular in recent years. And of course, this book was printed in 1980. So who knows where we stand on that? But a cue is a message sent indirectly, whose meaning may be ambiguous and require interpretation. Essentially, they fall into three basic categories. One, unintentional cues, in which behavior or words transmit an inadvertent message. For example, the Freudian slip, right? Someone says something, but they didn't mean to say it, and they do say it. I definitely, if you know me, I do that one for sure, for sure. Second, verbal cues, in which voice, intonation, or emphasis sends a message that seems to contradict the words being spoken. Interesting. Third, behavioral cues, which are the language of the body are as displayed in posture, facial expressions, eye contact, and hand gestures, where a person sits at a conference table, who nudges whom or who pats whom on the shoulder. Presumably in our culture, patters have more power than patties. A, that sounds super freaky. B, yes. Right? There is something more dominant and more in control when someone goes to like pat their back or touch the person as opposed to the person who's being touched, right? You can see the physicality of dominance there. So that's very, very interesting. He goes on to say a little bit more, and then I'll start to summarize. To further explain what we mean by behavioral cues or nonverbal vibes, let me set the scene. A husband has been away on a business trip for an extended period. He has lived an ascetic life on the road, and longing has built up in his heart. Walking toward his house, suitcase in hand, he notices that the lights are somewhat dim. Moving closer, he hears soft music emanating from the house. He quickens his pace as anxiety begins to build. Then he notices a woman who appears to be his wife, standing in the doorway in a diaphanous gown, a martini in hand. He calls out to her, "Where are the kids?" She responds, "They won't be home for hours." Now I ask you, is that a cue or is that a cue? To some of us, the cue may be that we're in the wrong house. The point is that we all live in the world where nonverbal signals are being transmitted and received. How does a wife tell a husband that tonight's the night when ordinarily it's not the night? Does she write him a memo? RE, activities for the evening, please disregard prior schedule. Conversely, how does a wife inform a husband that tonight's not the night when ordinarily it is? The latter is a more familiar occurrence for some of us. talking smack. I can't even. And from the time we were infants, we all learned to communicate our needs, likes, and dislikes to others without resorting to words. This ability has remained with us, and it often appears in the form of a raised eyebrow, a smile, a touch, a scowl, a wink, or a reluctance to make eye contact during a conversation. These actions are all behavioral cues or a form of body language. So why is this important? It's giving you insight as to how the person you're speaking to is feeling and is responding and reacting to what you're saying. And you then, if you are mastering the art of negotiation, need to take that into consideration as to how far and how much you're going to get forward out of this conversation, what you're going to be able to achieve, if you're going to be able to get what you want ultimately. All right. So with that, there are more tabs that I could get into, but one thing I would say is, I think the last piece of like verbiage that I would love to share with you before going to the summary is the last page. I thought it was a brilliant kind of wrap up from a book. I don't necessarily know if all endings really kind of moved me this way, but I really liked it. And so let me read it to you. I highlighted it in yellow and everything. It was like, special. Page 255. Now that we have come full circle, I trust that the end of this journey marks the beginning of a rewarding and liberating phase of your life. You have a role to play in this world, a reason for being, but it is up to you to find your part and direct your future. You alone determine your destiny through your own efforts. Accept this responsibility, not just for yourself, but for us all. You have the power to change your life and the lives of others as well. Don't back away from the exercise of power or wait for someone else to act. Of course, you can get what you want, but part of what you want should be to help others along the way. The good life is not a passive existence where you live and let live. It is one of involvement where you live and help live. Let me read that part again. The good life is not a passive existence where you live and let live. It is one of involvement where you live and help live. I love that. I thought that was like deeply profound. And as a coach and as an influencer and just kind of advocate, all of the good things that I do, content creator, all that good jazz, I just love the idea of him saying, hey, it's your life, and your life means you have to be an active participant in it. But guess what? Your life also impacts others. We're all influencers. We're all people who could be change agents. So to live a good life is not just to make your life filled with what you want it out of it, but it's also to help others have the same for their own lives. And I thought, yes, queen. Like, yes, queen wasn't a thing then, but it totally should be. Because that's amazing. So those are some passages that I thought were really important to include in the conversation. Now to summarize kind of why you should read the book, I think it comes down to 8 real things that you're going to take away from reading this book. 1, understanding the different negotiation techniques. And again, these 8 things will be on the blog post so that you can take this, you can live with this over and over and over again. I want you to make sure that this feeds your soul and helps feed you as an enhanced and or brand new negotiator in your life. Understand the different techniques. There's different ways to skin a cat, as they say. I know that's gross, but it is what it is. And when it comes to negotiation, it's not just one way to do it, not one approach, not one mechanism that can be applied. So definitely go through that, parse through that in the book. You're going to take that away. Next, knowing your audience. You have to know who you're speaking to. It's going to give you insight as to how you frame the conversation, how you change your language. And to be honest, for me as a communicator, I love that, but it also is something that I've always had to struggle with myself. Why? Because I am a true advocate of like, be yourself in every circumstance, right? Be your authentic best self. However, your authentic best self has to be malleable in nature. It has to be changeable for the circumstance. Otherwise, you can go into a situation being you, and that version of you doesn't respond well with who you're speaking to. And then you're not going to ultimately achieve what you set out to. So what was the point of that? So know your audience, that's key. Next, adapt the conversation based on how you communicate with your opponent. Meaning what? How you negotiate on the phone is completely different from how you're going to do it in person. It's going to be different from how you do it on a Zoom. It's going to be different than how you do it through the DM. It's going to be different than how you do it through a live stream, right? There's different ways of communicating now. Hello, 2020. And we need to be mindful of that and the tools that we're using with having these conversations that we're having. Next, gather information that you need before you speak with the person. A lot of times it's a lot easier to negotiate and to have a meaningful conversation with someone if you come to the table prepared, if you understand what their needs are, if you understand what they need out of the circumstance, as opposed to coming to the table and being like, so I don't know, what's going on? What do you mean? Right? It shows that you haven't taken the time to really do your homework, to dive in. And it also shows that you're not really invested in making the other person's needs satisfied, nor does it seem that you would be very invested in you getting what you want because you didn't even do your homework and you came to the table unprepared. So we don't want to do that. Next, keep your emotions out of the equation, but make sure that the person you're speaking to, the opponent, is emotionally invested and connected. Why do you want to do that? If you get your emotions involved, what's going to happen? Depending upon how emotional of a person you are, it can get sticky icky, right? You can lose sight of what you are intending to accomplish because of the emotional attachment and involvement that you've brought to the table. Keep your emotions out of the situation. The point is to get who you're speaking to emotionally attached to the ultimate goal so that they are more likely to say yes. Right? So in a real estate instance, for instance, the house is being sold by the owners themselves. You want to buy the house. Whether you buy the house or not, whether you really want to, yeah, you might emotionally really want to buy this house, but you have to take that to the side. That has to go left because you need the seller who needs to sell the house because they need the money to be fully emotionally invested. Why? Because then they're more likely to bend to your negotiation tactics, and you keeping your emotions out of it. Whether you get the house or you have to walk away, life goes on, right? Next, deadlines are important and relevant to the process. A lot of times people, if you give them forever, then they'll take forever, right? But when you start to give people timelines and you start to say, hey, this has to be done by this time, it creates sense of urgency, it creates movement and mobility, and then more likely to get what you want out of the conversation, out of the deal. Next, credentialing is important. There's power with credentials. Some people respond well to the, oh, you're from Harvard, you are a CPA, So be mindful. Again, that goes back to knowing your audience. If you know that your audience is an audience that cares about the credentialing and or is going to trust you more, and he talks about that too, the power of trust and how that's displayed in conversations. Credentials go a part of that. So think about the credentialing that you have and that you're bringing to the table with things. And if you want more credentialing, think about what would make more sense for what you need to achieve in your career, in your business, in your life, etc. And then the last point is get your opponent to relate to you in the conversation, in the negotiation. Likability is very helpful. I think it's always underrated. A lot of times, whether I feel like fully, for instance, like I'll have conversations with people and you can't be an expert in everything, right? Ultimately, but you have to come to things in life with a sense of power and presence. And the more that you understand how to get people to like you instantaneously in how you communicate, the more likely they're going to hear you out, the more likely that you're going to have a conversation that resonates, that they're going to allow you to express what you need to express. And if you need to negotiate, here we go. Let's get it popping. So likability is key. Relatability is super, super important. So if you want, again, these little 8 nuggets of information, come to dressroom8.com Monday. The blog post will be live with this video, so you can rewatch this again and then you can read through those 8 points. And then with that, I would love to just kind of demonstrate to you, because we are winding down right now, what the next book is. So let me show you what that is. I have just put it on the screen so you can see. And now let me show you a copy. So this is what we're going to be reading for September, my birthday month. Obviously the most amazing month, Avi. So I'm like obsessed with Avi right now, that word. I'm not sure why. So that's just where we're at with that. But Developing the Leader Within You 2.0. This is by John C. Maxwell. Why is this important? Leadership is key. It doesn't matter what we're doing in life. It is ultimately important for us to think about the types of leaders that we are and how leadership plays a role in what we need to achieve in our businesses, in our lives, all of that. Okay, so with that, I have that there. You can definitely, if you want, where will you be able to get this? This will be posted on the homepage tomorrow. So you can definitely get that there. And it's also on the recommendations page. So you can always just go to dressroomate.com, get the book there. So with that, I'm not seeing any questions or comments right now, but like I said, sometimes this gets a little funky. So I can totally go back and check and make sure that I haven't missed anything, and so that I want to address everyone's question. But again, thank you for joining the August book club to discuss You Can Negotiate Anything by Herb Cohen. So super, super practical, again, super tactical, super relevant. It's an oldie, but it's a goodie for sure. And it's going to help you. It's going to help you with how you communicate with people, how you get things done, and also helping you to think about the power that you have in your life and how you use communication to really serve you. Now, next month, September, best month of the year. Woohoo! We're going to be reading this. It's Developing the Leader Within You 2.0 by John C. Maxwell. All right. So with that, I bid you adieu. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. You're going to have an amazing day, because that's my intention set for you. But hopefully that's the intention you've set for yourself. And if you have questions, concerns, best place to find me, dressroomate.com. It's the blog. It's also where you'll be able to schedule a strategy session with me if you want to think about negotiation on a more personal level for you. If you have other things that, like I said, whether it's accountability or innovation, things like that, hit your girl up, dressroomate.com. And with that, let's say goodbye. It's so sad. Oh, no. But don't worry. Go to dressroomate.com. You'll be able to subscribe to the blog. You'll be able to see upcoming events. Am I coming back on here? Of course I am. I told you I love the internet and social media. So I'll see you guys soon. All right. Have a wonderful day. Bye.